nuggets. Today's nugget is about the special relationship between Lydian, Locrian and Dorian. And the last lesson was about Bjork and Slater-Kinney writing in Locrian. So that was a piece of my own that I consider to be in Locrian in the verse and then Lydian in the chorus, but both belonging to the same key. So it's the key of E major, effectively, and the Locrian would be D sharp, because E major, if we go down a semitone from the second root, there's that D sharp. So there's your Locrian root, if you like. The chord that's built on that note, on that interval of the scale, is a half diminished chord. My piece starts off with a half diminished chord, but the fifth, the flat fifth that makes it diminished, I guess, is suspended. So it starts there. So that bit of the tonality is kind of, I guess, kept from you initially, kept from the listener, and then it moves into a chord that's rooted. I guess you could consider that to be a B suspended chord, and there's a seventh in it, but the seventh of the B is actually the flat five that was kept from you to make the other chord half diminished. So already there's a relationship between those, and it starts to establish that relationship in the listener's ears. Then the whole time what I'm trying to do here is move the melody up and the bass line down. Again, because human beings enjoy that sort of contrary motion. When it moves down there, you could consider that to be the Lydian chord, or chord 4 in the key, in the major key, that is. So A is the root that we have here, and there's a third, so it is major, there's a C sharp in it, that is an F sharp, so there's a sixth in relation to the A, and this is all, you can simply deduce whether it's a sixth or a third or anything in relation to the root by going through the scale. This is why I recommend you always write these things down when you're composing and playing about with things, because it allows you to visualise it so much better. So we're in A, and if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's that note, and right enough it's an F sharp. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's that E row on, 6. So there shouldn't be any mystery in this, especially if you've watched a few of the modes videos that I've done already. And in the last one, the Locrian stuff's explained too. Anywho, so it goes through that. And then it shifts out a key. And that's because it's really hard to make the Locrian feel like home. Without using some other mechanism from elsewhere. If you use other chords in the key, especially if you go to chord 1, the major home, or chord 6, the minor home, it will really, they have a lot of gravitational pull for us as listeners, and it will ruin that vibe, it will ruin that Locrian, Lydian, Dorian kind of thing. So like, even to demonstrate that, if I go, let's say I go back to go to C sharp minor. Suddenly we're somewhere else entirely, and if I go to E major, again we're somewhere else entirely, and that has so much gravity. It's like you can't get back into that moody kind of vibe if you've arrived there. The reason that I've used the chord that I use to turn around, so we're going, reason that feels good, it's a D major 7 first of all, so it's completely out of key. The reason it feels good is that it's leaning from really two separate directions. Actually, only one in this case. It's leaning from a semitone below the Locrian, so it lilts up, and it's kind of the only way that I've discovered so far to come home to Locrian, just be beneath it, so that you actually feel like you have a rise. And it actually has most of those notes in common. I've discovered the fall as well, just from doing this. D major 7, the root is a semitone below the Locrian, the D sharp Locrian. And also, there's a fifth implied there. I don't do it in this part of the tune, but there's a fifth there in the D major 7, if you play this voicing, which will fall into the flat 5 of the Locrian chord, the D sharp Locrian chord. So that's like you've got two bits of motion. You've got that happening, and that's kind of like the satisfying thing about when you resolve from a 5 chord to a 1 chord. So for example, if that's the 5 chord in the key of, let's say, D major, then the 7th and 3rd of that dominant chord, they will go, the 3rd goes up to the root of the 1 chord, and the 7th goes down to the 3rd of the 1 chord. So it's the same kind of function, that. And again, our ears like that. It's in so much music, we expect it, in a sense. So that's how the verse is working. I will eventually get on to what Locrian, Dorian and Lydian have in common. One good way of introducing that is that the chorus goes to Lydian, so I end up here. Now that, we're rooted in A, and I'm really playing with the Lydian feel of that. I'm really implying the Lydianness of it by having that sharp 4 in the chord. So 1, 2, 3, 4, that's just a major scale. We sharpen that 4th, and there's the Lydian note. And there it is up an octave. And you get this beautiful dissonance between a sharp 11, sharp 4, and a 5th. So you put that into the chord. For me, it really feels like sci-fi. And I love it. I think it's a great sound. To get there, there's a bit of a con going on. You're fooling the listener, really, and that is I go through the motions with the verse. And I have the D major 7 as usual, as it would resolve to the D sharp. So, but instead of resolving to that, I'm putting a fake turnaround chord in, or it is a turnaround chord. And that is an E7, E13 actually, with a flat 9 in it. So that leans really hard into an A major chord. So. And that's just a 5-1 relationship really, but it's fooling the listener because really that's the 4 chord of this Locrian key. I know Locrian isn't a key, but that's how we're thinking, it's the Locrian tonality. And again, we built up this relationship, so it's both a release and it's acceptable as a modal thing too. So it feels like home, but then we can bring back that Lydian relationship. That's why the first time I play that, when it goes to the chorus, I don't use the Lydian note, I go, and then I bring it in later. So I'll just demonstrate why that is, in case you don't quite get that. That is an E13, sorry, with a flat 9. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now an E13, like a E9 or an E7, would have a flat 7 instead of a major 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, flattened. So that's root in flat 7th. And I said this was a flat 9. 1, 2. That's as far as we need to go, because remember, add 7 to any interval and it becomes a compound interval. It becomes the 9th or the 11th or the 13th. So 1, 2, I said it was a flat 9. You flatten that 2, and then up an octave, that's a 9th. We could even go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and flatten it. So you see those are the same note. And then we've got a 13, that's the last part of the puzzle. Again, I could just go through the scale for 13, or I could go to the 6th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up an octave, and we've got that note. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And like I say, that leans really hard into an A major, because everything falls and feels warm and fuzzy and nice, and like home, except it's not home. We're going to introduce that Lydian tonality and bring that feel back. So there's the... And then what I do is I have a wild key change, but it still has a Lydian relationship, because I'm building the next chord. The next chord is Lydian. It's the same as that, except it's built in E flat. So it's like, except I just do it here because it's closer. And because that's built on the 1, 2, 3 sharp 4, it kind of reinforces that Lydian thing. It makes it more Lydian. It's like Jacob Collier's hyper, mega, ultra Lydian, or whatever he calls it. The thing where you do a triad, and then you build another. You can get really Lydian sounds by building another triad from the sharp 4 of each triad. And that's effectively what I'm doing there. Whoops. And so on. And the idea of that gave me the idea to then invert the first chord. So that is just an inversion of that. I'm using, instead of that root, it's that root, and then there's the sharp 4, there's the 5th, that's the 3rd away up the top, and I use that to build a little melody. So like 3rd, 2nd, root, and then I'm going through. This is kind of like a altered dominant chord, and that's built how did I figure that one out? Oh yeah, because it's like that. So imagine an A flat, but then you've sharpened the 5th and put a flat 9 on it. So it's like playing that chord. A flat 7, there's the flat 7, there's the A flat, 3rd, sharp 5, flat 9. And then this little part is like, all of that is kind of like F sharp minor. So F sharp minor there. Then I'm travelling through, rooted on the 7th of the F sharp minor, I guess. That's kind of like a dominant chord with a flat 9. And then I'm using the amen cadence, so like a suspended 4 cadence, church cadence. A semitone below the Lydian chord, so that everything lilts back up into the Lydian. So that's like an A flat sus4 to an A flat major, and then that feels really good just notching up like that. Again, because close voices, it wants to come back to the place where it started for starters, and also their semitones. So that close movement's satisfying to us as listeners. Actually getting back to this was kind of a nightmare, because it's hard to just, you're already in that Lydian tonality. So they kind of feel too similar to just go back from one to the other, and also from this, it's okay, but it feels a bit abrupt, it feels a bit forced. So I went on a long excursion, and again, showing this sort of relationship between Locrian, Lydian, and now Dorian, I used the F sharp minor 6 to come back to this. So a minor 6 is a Dorian chord. I've definitely been over this a few times in previous lessons, but basically we're in the key of E major, if you remember right back at the start, and the second mode of E major is F sharp Dorian. And that 6th isn't the 6th that you normally expect in a minor chord, or a minor scale, sorry. So Aeolian, natural minor, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. F sharp Dorian has a major 6 inside that minor scale, so you replace the flat 6, the minor 6, with a major 6. So if you put that into the F sharp minor chord, 1, 2, in fact, F sharp, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's the major 6th. In fact, we use a major scale just to check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We put that into our minor chord, so root, there's the minor 3rd we had before. You have to rearrange things a little. Minor 3rd and 5th. And we can get that 6th in there now. And again, what I'm doing to bring this back down to that Locrian chord is I'm trying to make the bass go one way and the melody go the other way, just for a bit of satisfying voice movement. So then I use the actual major home chord, but because it's on the second beat of the bar, it doesn't feel like major home, especially because I'm creating tension with the major 7ths in it. And then I'm going through, again bringing the bass line down and the top line up. That is a C sharp minor. So they have a relationship in themselves. It's kind of like you're creating tension with the home chords. So F sharp minor 6, E major 7, C sharp minor, and then that is basically a G sharp minor, so the 3 chord, again a tonic chord, sort of a home chord, with a 5th in the bass. And now I've started coming up with the bass, but then I've got, what I've done here basically is I'm going back to that D major 7 tonality, except it's a 6 this time round, so that's root, third, major third, that is a 5th, and that's a 6th of D major, so we're out of key here. I'm using that chord that was going to come back, but I'm going through a much longer journey, so, and then I'm just kind of going through, now it's not actually major notes that I'm taking here, it's D Lydian notes. Not entirely sure why that works yet, but they're all just little inversions of chords from D Lydian. And suddenly it feels like that was a lot more intentional. It's a much more satisfying resolve. I think because we took our time getting there. This didn't come easily. There's a lot of exploration involved in this. So that's going. And that's us back to the verse. I think another thing that makes that more acceptable as a resolve is that I've brought that rhythm back again. I've brought that picking rhythm back again, instead of just the. So yeah, hopefully that'll allow you to explore these chords yourself and understand these relationships a little bit better. But just to really point that relationship out. If we make arpeggios out of D sharp Locrian, F sharp Dorian and A Lydian, what happens is they're just inversions of each other, and the chords are inversions of each other effectively as well. The Lydian one's a little bit forced because it's got a 6th in it, but basically they have the same notes. So a D sharp Locrian arpeggio which goes perfectly with that first chord, the D sharp half diminished chord. That has the notes D sharp, F sharp, A, C sharp, and then it just repeats in another octave. If we then form a Dorian arpeggio, so arpeggiating a minor 6 chord from the F sharp, which is where the Dorian place is in this key, you can already hear that they have the same notes, or there's certainly a strong relationship. But let's just go through that. So the root is F sharp in the 9th fret there, A, C sharp, and D sharp, and then that repeats in another octave. F sharp, A, C sharp, D sharp. And in actual fact, if we go down one step, we are playing the Locrian arpeggio. So down here, exactly the same notes. And you could play one over the other. I'll just layer those two up. So you can hear they're made of the exact same stuff. And then Lydian is the same. Again, I'm kind of forcing this because we've got a 6th in it. We've got root, 3rd, sharp 4, so that's the Lydian, major 6, which is in a Lydian scale, but you would normally maybe expect to have a 7th in there if you're constructing arpeggios. So maybe normally you would do this, which is actually kind of more Lydian sounding. But the 6 is still, it kind of balances it out. So, and those are the same notes again: A, C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, A, C sharp, D sharp, F sharp. Whoops. So we could then put in an A major chord into that chord progression, and the same arpeggio would really harmonise with all of them, or the same 3 arpeggios even. So you can make it more Lydian. In the Lydian arpeggio. So they're just completely made of the same stuff. Another thing I recommend looking at would be some Barry Harris videos where he's talking about 6 diminished harmony. You can have major 6 diminished harmony and minor 6 diminished harmony. And when he goes through minor 6 diminished chords, I'll just do it, in fact, I'll do it in the right key, so F sharp minor 6, or in the key that we've been working in. So if I just go through inversions of F sharp minor 6 chord, which is what Barry Harris does to demonstrate, we've got root, 5th, major 6, minor 3rd. Then we have 3rd, that would be the 6th, that's the root, and that's the 5th of the F sharp, and that to me makes a Lydian chord. So root major 3rd, root sharp 4, root. There's that 6 that I said we have to kind of force in it. Then we've got, I would just call that second inversion of an F sharp minor 6th. We'll bring it down here because it's going to get impossible. But then the last inversion, so that's still got the same notes. We have C sharp, F sharp, A, D sharp. And then the last inversion is the half diminished chord. So that would be, and again we have the same notes. D sharp, A, C sharp, and F sharp. And in between he puts diminished chords. That's kind of the nature of the 6 diminished harmony. So it's going like, it's a very cool sound, and you can do it with major 6 chords as well. So check that out, it's Barry Harris 6 diminished harmony. Rick Beatlo's got a few lessons on it as well. Okay, so that was a hell of a lot of information. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments below if anything confused you. Hopefully it gives you some ideas about composing in different tonalities, and also this unusual, well, it's not unusual, this intrinsic relationship between these 3 modes and their tonalities. Also, the board will be in the comments below. Description even. Okay, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.